You're watching Let's Chat.
Andy Virus of Talk.
And welcome back from Apogee Wealth Partners. Our friend Chris Hopkins joins us to talk about all things economy, or at least as many as we can squeeze into 5 or 6 minutes. Chris, good to see you.
Good morning.
Big news from the United Auto Workers says that they have approved a tentative agreement. And anytime I hear that word tentative, I always go, hold your horses, don't be in a big hurry. But this includes more than $8 billion just with Ford, plus $5,000 in ratification bonus. What's a ratification bonus, and what's this going to mean to you and me if we're out trying to buy a new Ford?
Well, it means higher car prices, number one. So to back up a step, this is a historic labor agreement. You know, we can remember the 70s and 80s when labor was pretty strong. We've had a big decline. This new union president, Shawn Fain, is a kind of a throwback to the old days, and they did a brilliant strategy. So they have negotiated probably a record labor contract.
Really?
Yeah, about a 25% pay raise over 3 years, plus a restoration of some retirement benefits, the right to strike in the event of a plant closure. So it's a huge deal.
Labor hasn't had that big of a fist, as you said, in many, many years. Longer term, is this good for the car buyer?
Well, it's going to impact prices. There's no question that this deal is going to add another, by the end of the contract, $1,000, $1,500 to the price of a car. But more importantly, it kind of resets the dialogue, the discussion. It means that labor's got a lot more leverage. And we've seen the airlines, UPS, but this is really a record-setting contract. So expect to see a lot more of this going forward.
Could set a lot of precedents in a number of other industries. Let's stick with the automotive theme just for a bit. Gas prices, where do you see them going? You hear that in the autumn, gas prices come down a little bit. Well, they did a couple of weeks ago, and now we're looking at them going back up. And is the current situation in the Mideast going to drive these prices up even higher?
Well, it could. It certainly could. If the conflict expands into some of the Middle Eastern producers, it definitely could impact the price of oil. But the interesting thing, we've seen a couple of giant mergers in the oil business recently. And what that really speaks to is we used to talk about when are we going to run out of oil, right? You and I can remember that,
sure.
Peak oil. Well, now what we're talking about is when are we going to start reducing the use of oil, and that's within maybe a decade time frame. So in the longer run, we're going to see oil and gas prices trend down as usage declines. In the meantime, it's these short-term fluctuations, and war is certainly one of them.
What's it going to take for somebody in the Middle East to put their fingers over the proverbial pipeline and reduce the supply that we're able to import?
Well, OPEC's already tried to do that, but many people may not understand that as of 2020, the U.S. is effectively independent. We now export more oil and petroleum products than we import.
Wow.
And few people know that, and that's for the last 3 years. So we used to talk about energy independence. We effectively have arrived there thanks to some of the shale oil and gas production in the Permian Basin, the Bakken Shale, and so forth.
Another thing that I want to shift gears here a moment and talk about that's got the potential to throw a wrench into the economy, and that's the student loan repayment situation. They were lifted for a while. Now student loan payments are back. What is that going to do?
Well, for one thing, it's probably going to impact the Christmas shopping season. You know, student loans were on hiatus for 3.5 years. So one would have expected that these folks would have taken that opportunity to pay down some other debt. What happened in the aggregate is they actually took on more. So as we sit here today resuming student loan payments, the average borrower has a larger credit card balance than they had before the pause.
Right.
So that's clearly going to impact consumer spending. In fact, the restoration of these payments is going to add up to about 1 to 2% of total discretionary spending. That can't go to the mall anymore. It's got to go to the lender.
Wow. Now, a lot of certainly, potentially at least far-reaching complications.
Well, and on top of that, at an individual level, we heard this morning that about 800,000 borrowers missed their first payment.
Wow. 800,000. Think about that. Chris, good to see you as always. Certainly, Chris breaks this down into terms even folks like us can understand, and we thank you for that very much. Get in touch with Chris Hopkins if you would. Apogee Wealth Partners, LLC. Apogee Wealth Partners, LLC. And I think I have your website written down here somewhere, Chris. I have a phone number. That's about as good as it gets. You tell me the website.
ApogeeWP.com, and happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween indeed. We're right back with more of Let's Chat after this.